They did get knocked down. They got confused at times. They stayed solid. They were able to get back up. Why? Because they recalled the scriptures and they were convinced that they were listening to the Son of God. Well, today, wicked men and imposters use exactly the same techniques, and it's only going to get worse. They use lies and misrepresentation. They lie about how we deal with child abusers, how we...
The governing body has also asked me to address another topic that I must say hits close to my heart, being a father who raised 2 boys. The subject is the abuse of children and the damaging effects this can have on such innocent victims. As an organization, we view all such abuse of children, whether physical, sexual, or emotional, as deplorable. As you likely know, Jehovah's Witnesses take a stronger position than most on the scriptural inappropriateness of any form of immorality. However, to take advantage of innocent young ones is absolutely despicable. As a religious organization, we have taken a decisive stand against such behavior. It is our fervent desire to protect children from any kind of abuse. Our policy as an organization is that one professing to be a victim or his parents should never be discouraged from reporting the incident to the appropriate authorities. While child abuse has been perpetrated earthwide in many cultures for thousands of years, it is only in the past 40 years or so that the magnitude and the extent of the problem has become better known. This is because governmental agencies are now determined to take a more active interest in this problem. Laws were enacted requiring medical and other professionals to report cases to the authorities when they became aware of them. Prior to that time, many governmental, educational, and religious organizations were somewhat naive about the magnitude and the complexity of the situation. Others knew of the problem and covered it up. What has our position been as an organization?
Secret letter that sent shockwaves through the Jehovah's Witnesses. A letter that allegedly urged elders to tamper with potential evidence of damning claims against the church. Tonight, 2 former members tell their stories in hope justice will prevail.
David, what was your childhood like?
Horrific. They should be destroyed once they're...
They're words that should never have been put on paper.
We take this opportunity to send our warm Christian love and greetings.
A letter sent to Jehovah's Witness elders, which to victims seems like a request that evidence be tampered with. It's difficult to hear and even harder for David to read.
Being a Jehovah's Witness is one of the hardest things to be as a child.
Are they potentially destroying evidence?
I think that there is a potential that they are destroying evidence.
David Bonici's memories haunt him.
Started very young.
David claims a male relative subjected him to years of physical and sexual abuse. His earliest memory is from when he was just 4. He says his sister Danielle, who took her own life 12 years ago, was also abused.
If we didn't participate, we would be locked in a cupboard for days.
As loyal Jehovah's Witnesses, speaking up would bring disrepute on his family. But despite that, David claims he raised the alarm time after time.
I thought it was normal. I thought it was, at first I thought it was part of the church until I started to speak up to Dennis.
David and his family were members of this Jehovah's Witness church here in Toowoomba for several years. He says during that time, the elders of this community were made aware of the alleged abuse he claims he was suffering. We tracked down Elder Dennis Davies to ask him some questions.
Are you calling David a liar, Dennis?
No, I'm not calling him a liar. People have perceptions about things, and it's well known that those perceptions can be embedded in a person's mind.
He was our leader. He was the man that we went to for questions, for guidance.
David claims on 2 separate occasions he lived with Dennis for months, while Dennis and the organisation investigated his family. But David says he was always returned home. David is now suing the Jehovah's Witness Church for compensation.
Did you feel safe with Dennis?
Kinda, and there were, times that I wasn't being listened to, and it was a very strict household.
What were you hoping would come from your time with Dennis?
Being rescued.
There was never any suggestion that he was being either physically or sexually abused. Never. And I was aware of an unhappy relationship in the family, and that is all.
Did you ever do anything about that? Did you ever look a little bit further into that unhappy relationship?
It wasn't my prerogative to do that.
Was the information you shared with Dennis Davies ever reported to police?
Never.
It was never an issue. We took the children...
Dennis, with all due respect, a child comes to you and tells you that he has been sexually abused. Right. You don't bother to investigate the issue.
Just listen to me.
Yeah.
Nothing ever suggested that there was any sexual abuse or physical abuse.
He knows far more than he's alluding.
From a child's perspective, I lived in fear.
David's experiences are all too familiar for Shelley Brayo, who was raised as a Jehovah's Witness and was physically and sexually assaulted by her father. Shelley says she reported the abuse to the elders within her community.
They set up a meeting with elders. That meant that 3 men, they were my father's age, they were his friends, and they questioned me.
What sort of questions did they ask you, a teenager?
They asked me whether or not I enjoyed it. What did I do? How did I react to that? And they repeat the questions over and over.
Shelley's father was disfellowshipped, but not for the allegations she made against him. Instead, because he had an affair. He was later reinstated into the religion with a range of restrictions.
Restrictions are, I'll be really clear, not handing a microphone around at the Kingdom Hall. Restrictions are that they might not be able to answer a question publicly, or they might not be able to give a talk. So when Jehovah's Witnesses actually refer to a lot of restrictions, well, I mean, you be the judge of that, if that's really some type of punishment that would deter them from sexually assaulting again. The perm was a mistake.
Furious at how her case was handled, Shelley walked away from her religion, her family, and everything she'd ever known, and went straight to police.
She said, Shelley, that's a crime. That's a crime.
Natalie Bennett helped Shelley pursue her case against her father, who was eventually convicted of 5 counts of indecent assault and 1 count of attempted rape. Shelley was later one of 2 crucial witnesses who gave evidence against the Jehovah's Witnesses at the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse. Today, she's a lawyer and an unsworn employee of Queensland Police.
When I talked before about the Judicial Committee meetings with the elders, one of the elders who sat to my right took notes of everything that was going on.
Hi, how are you?
Natalie got her hands on those notes.
Fast forward to the Royal Commission in 2015, the notes were not there. And the notes that were produced at the Royal Commission were a copy of the notes that Natalie had subpoenaed back with the criminal trials.
The only reason that evidence was available was because Natalie had made copies.
Yeah, they've disappeared.
Lisa Flynn, head of the Abuse Law Department at Shine Lawyers, says this letter, obtained by a current affair, is another example of the organisation protecting themselves and their reputation ahead of the laws of Australia and the needs of survivors.
We are writing to provide a few general reminders about confidential records. there is generally no need for the notes to be retained.
David could be directly impacted by that letter.
He does have a fear that that direction will be followed and that evidence that could support his case could be destroyed.
This allows each elder to understand how the individual really feels about his wrongdoing, about his relationship with Jehovah, and about his determination to avoid sinning seriously against God in the future.
I think that this organisation does see themselves as above the law.
Please endeavour to frame this in a positive way, perhaps highlighting some Bible principles that the person has been encouraged to apply more fully.
There are plenty of people here today at Jehovah's Witness headquarters